everybody, welcome to another SUPboarder video. In this video we're going to be covering the brand new FreeWing Air V3. Yes, the third season for this wing. FreeWing are very much trying to achieve the same thing with this V3 version, which is to make an all-round wing focusing with good ease of use. Before I jump into this review, a little bit of information about FreeWing. They are a collaboration of two brands, Airrush, kitesurfing, and Starboard, windsurfing, SUP. And they came together to make FreeWing, which is what you have here. They've got a large selection of wings, and we're going to be doing a lot more reviews on their wings on SUPboarder into the future. They've got some high performance, sort of racing, freestyle wings, and they've got the all-round wings like this one, and they've also got a really good entry-level wing, which we've already reviewed in the Go. Hey guys, if you haven't already, remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel and give this video a like if you haven't already. It really makes a difference to how good we feel about ourselves. And check out SUPboarder Mag, our full website, where there's thousands of pages of content, and SUPboarder Pro, which will give you the next level of everything we do. So now let's jump straight into the main body of the review. First off, I'm going to talk about what they've changed in this new V3 compared to last year's wing. Now, if you've used a V2 last year, or you've seen many of the pictures, you'll notice that the canopy, which is the material here between the center strut and the leading edge, is a lot baggier in the V2. They have really tightened up the canopy for this year. Now that does a number of things, but really it's to do with the power delivery. As the wind hits that canopy, it's going to give you a more direct power. So it's going to get you up onto the foil a little bit earlier. Definitely a little bit easier when it comes to pumping and stuff like that. That's a big difference straight away between the V2 compared to this new V3. You'll notice how much tighter this is on that canopy straight away. Some of the big changes that they put into this new Air V3 is they've reduced the actual size of the main leading edge. Last year's V2 was quite a big leading edge. Gave you a load of power, but it was quite slow. So they've reduced the diameter of this leading edge, and actually does make the wing a lot faster than the previous years. Also gives you a little bit more stability when you're flying as well, because obviously you're not trying to push that big leading edge through the air. To reverse maybe the lack of stiffness and the lack of power that you would get out of having that bigger leading edge, they've increased the center strut to give you that much more power, especially if you're trying to pump and get up in lighter winds. So they've moved the size of the tubes around a bit, giving you a bigger center tube and a smaller leading edge. And another thing they've done with the main center strut is they've given it a much more profiled shape. So your front hand is actually further towards you and your back hand is further away. It's a little bit more of a comfortable stance. It's a stance that you would sort of use naturally when you're winging anyway, sheeting out a little bit with your backhand. The wingtips have had a little bit more work as well. Remember, the leading edge is smaller, it comes down, and the wingtips are actually a little bit smaller as well. Going to make it fly through the air a little bit quicker. It's going to make it a little bit more stable when you're flagging and parking the wing. Really helps the controllability and how well it flies. But one of the big differences is the amount of handles that they've got this year and how the handles are attached to the main center strut. So you might notice with this wing, we have the carbon fixed sort of rigid handles which are put onto the wing. Now, as standard, you get the two webbing sort of traditional style handles, but you have the option to buy into these carbon handles for an extra £75, I think, to give yourself a much more rigid feel on the water. Now, we're definitely going to speak about that more in a minute, but it's really nice that they've given you the option to go for these more fixed rigid handles or keep the cheaper webbing based handles on your wing as well. Moving on to how they've put the wing together, FreeWing have actually said that they've done a lot more work to the seam work here, and the proof is in the pudding really with what they say you can pump your wing up to. The smaller wings, they're recommending up to 10 psi, which is a large amount of pressure, and even the bigger wings, they're still recommending 7 psi. Now, compared to last year's wings, it's sort of a real reverse because they were much lower pressures. We're talking 4, 5, 6 psi, and now we're talking 10, 9, 8, 7 psi. So they have obviously done quite a lot onto the seam work here, or they're happy for you to inflate that wing to a higher pressure. Obviously, if you get more pressure in your wing, you're going to have a stiffer wing, and it's just going to be more direct, more powerful, and generally it's going to allow you to go faster because you're going to be able to reduce the diameter of that main leading edge. So high pressure is something that a lot of the brands are trying to achieve in their wings at the moment, but obviously it's got to be done safely because these materials are under a lot of load. Looking at the outline shape, FreeWing have definitely honed that outline shape a little bit more. They've reduced the center strut to make it a little bit more user-friendly, especially when you're going into tacks and jibes. And they've still kept the smaller FreeWings different outline shapes opposed to the bigger FreeWings. Now I've said this in a few other sort of videos. Any brand who is really designing each and every one of their wings and shows you a different shape wing from a 3.5 to a 7 meter shows that they are really designing each wing size. Instead of just making a 5 meter and scaling everyone up and everyone down, it really does make a big difference to us knowing that the brand is giving us the best design and the best response for each size of the wing. And this outline shape that the new Air V3 has got is going to tick that sort of all-round performance box. It's nice and compact for its size. It's not too wide in its wingspan. It's going to be excellent there for the beginner intermediate riders for sure because of that as well. Another thing which is going to be good for the definite beginner intermediate riders, or if you're just winging in a busy built up area or you've got loads of obstacles in the water, is having the windows on the wing. Now the windows are smaller than last year's wing, a little bit narrower, and the bigger ones, they've dropped the big back tail windows. You might have heard me say it in other videos, anytime a brand puts a window in a wing, it's going to change the performance of the wing, because this material, which is your more standard sort of kite spinnaker material that we see in lots of wings, it's very efficient, it's very good. It does stretch at a different rate to your PU material that FreeWing have put in their wings. Now, it's important to say that this material is very good, and it's not like the old wings where if you put them away in your shed and it was really, really cold, or you kept them folded up, they would get cracks and creases. They've really worked on giving you a very different window material. Windows in general is a very personal thing. I would advise, when you're getting into winging, it is nice to have a window. It's going to give you so much more confidence, because when you get up and foiling, you're going to be flying, yeah, this is the best thing I've ever done in my life. And you're going to be holding on to basically a barn door, and you're going to be like, I can't see anything. And you'll soon realize how nice it is just to have a window, even if it's a small one, to look out of. But for those riders who are trying to push the limits, and maybe you're really experienced and you know where you are on the water, dropping the window will give you more performance in weight saving and how the wing feels. And the last thing to chat about is the sizes of the wings. Last year there was only a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7, but now they've got 2.5, 3.5, 4.5 and a 5.5 in that mix as well. So you've got a huge amount of wings to choose from. And you can see there that these wings are still looking at fairly competitive prices compared to other top-end brands as well. Okay, so that's all the catalogue stuff. That's the stuff you can find on our website. Let's move on to our thoughts and impressions of the new FreeWing Air V3. So first off, let's talk about the weight of the wing. Now, we weighed this wing with the carbon handles and the leash, and it came in at 2.62 kilograms. Obviously, there's quite a lot of material in this wing because it's got a big leading edge and even bigger compared to last year's center strut. That's more material, it's going to weigh a bit more, and you've got the windows as well. So it is a fairly lightweight wing for the materials that are in it. Not as lightweight as some of the really expensive wings on the market, but then they're not aiming for this wing to be at that price point for a start, or that sort of rider wanting that sort of weight. But the big thing for us is talking about the power of the wing. This new tighter canopy, so much more grunt than the previous wing. So much more direct when you want to get up and pump and get onto the foil. And also bringing in the sort of outline shape and the wingtip length. This is a 5 meter, we've also seen the 6 meter as well. The wings actually do feel quite small, again, in their wingspans. Now sometimes the downside to having a more compact wing, or a wing with a shorter wingspan, is that when you go to park or flag your wing, which is holding onto the front handle here, and surf a little bump, ride downwind, is the wings can tend to rock or turn over. This is quite a stable wing when it comes to parking and flagging a wing. Is that due to the wingtips that they refined, or the tighter canopy, or probably a combination of a number of things? But it's a very comfortable and easy wing to fly in the surf. You could easily get into surf riding, downwinding, Again, it's like what FreeWing described. It's an all-round wing, and it definitely does park and ride that bump very, very easily. Now let's talk about the speed of the wing. How fast does it feel or let you travel across the water? Now obviously when it comes to speed, you've got lots of things to think about really. You've got your foil, how fast that is in the water, but you really don't want your wing slowing you down or dragging you back. Now with the V3, it has a comfortable amount of speed, let's say. It's definitely not the fastest wing on the market, but it's definitely not the slowest wing either. Because of the stiffness of the wing, due to the high pressure and the bigger central strut, you have got that quite direct sort of feel, so you can tweak and maneuver your wing to get the most speed out of your wing. So I would say comfortable. It's not the fastest, but it's definitely not the slowest as well. Just a good all-round wing when it comes to speed. Okay, let's now talk about handles. Okay, so these are the carbon pre-preg handles. As I said, these are £75 extra on top of your standard webbing handles. Little bit fun fact, these are 100 grams and your webbing handles are 90 grams. So actually you're looking at a weight saving, well, you're not looking at a weight saving with your carbon handles. You are really looking at having the ability to have a way more direct feel of your wing when you are not, I'm going to say not on the foil. When you're trying to get up, when you're moving yourself around, when you're maybe wobbling in a bit of surf, that is when these handles really, really work well. They are so direct, you can pivot just on the front or the back, one hand. Just having those handles really helps in the lighter wind conditions, getting up in lighter winds, getting your balance sorted out in those choppy waters. That's the big thing when we notice the difference with these handles compared to the webbing sort of strap style handle. When you're up and riding, the webbing straps, yes, they're not as direct, but it's not so much of an issue. We'd strongly advise you to go for the carbon upgrade handles. You can always, run one at the front, one at the back. You can do anything. Very easily to screw in, nice and quick to put on. And it's really nice to be able to buy and put something like that on your wing. Looking at tacks and jibes, well, in the past, the FreeWings, I always thought jibed fairly well for their size. They came around nice and easy. The tacks were a little bit, maybe they pushed you down a little bit if you didn't get your wing at the right angle. Having the tighter canopy really helps that with the V3. Definitely we think the tacks are easier with this new wing. It still jibes nice and easy. As I said, the wingtips are quite compact. It comes around nice and easy. And if using it with these handles again, it's very easy to rotate just one hand to initiate that jibe with your wing. For you freestylers out there, it still will do that. You're still going to be able to bust jumps. You're still going to be able to do your rotations. It's got the stiffness in the main leading edge and that main center strut. Again, it's exactly where FreeWing are pushing it. It's an all-round wing. So if you are getting into it and you want to start jumping, this wing's going to be absolutely fine. If you want to push the level and get into top-end freestyle, then maybe you should be looking at more specialist wings. But for most of us out there, even if you want to bust and do little rotations, this wing is going to do the job absolutely fine. Looking at some other elements of the wing, you've got a really nice leash with a nice, good quality stainless swivel. Doesn't get tangled or twisted up. This one comes with a wrist strap. You could easily upgrade that to a waist strap because you can untie that one on there, but the leash quality is really good and it seems to be a good length. It is a single inflation port, so you can inflate it and then it inflates that main center strut, and then you can lock it off to keep that strut inflated if you want to just roll your wing up with the center strut inflated. And when you want to deflate it quickly, you have got a dump valve in that main strut as well, so you can get the air out nice and quick. As I said before, I'm in a rush to and from the beach, actually even more from the beach, because I'm usually pushing my session to the limit, so I just want to get the air out as quick as possible, shove it in the bag. Talking about the bag, they have made the bag a little bit bigger this year. Also, there's loads of spares that come with the wing. You get a spare tube that feeds the air to the main center strut, and there's a repair kit, and obviously it's all packed and wrapped in recycled paper and all that sort of stuff you'd expect from Starboard and Airrush in the FreeWing wing. Other little things, just in case you're wondering, the sort of patches that are on the wings, you might have seen it in some other brands as well. They're actually reinforcing patches for when you're rolling it up and storing it. It has just rub point to stop any potential sharper bits hitting the main wing fabric. The way that the wing is made, it's similar sort of layout of panel work compared to the previous V2, and we think the material is very much the same as well. It's available in a few different colorways, which is quite neat. Not as many as last year, but there is some pretty cool colors, and I do personally like the pink one. Other standard stuff that I do think is worth mentioning, because a lot of other brands are dropping it out to reduce the weight, is the sort of rubbing, the reinforcing patches that are on the leading edge and on the wingtips. This has all of that. So it goes to show that, you know, FreeWing could make this wing way lighter if they wanted to, but they want to make a wing that's going to last. They want to make a wing that you're going to enjoy and not have to worry about if you're dragging it down the beach or it's getting turned over in the car park. So rubbing strips everywhere, and you've got your mini leech battens at the bottom there, which if you're unsure what they do, they just stop the trailing edge from fluttering and making a noise and not being very efficient when you're flying. Let's move on to negatives, which is always a little bit awkward, more so when I haven't actually got any, because I like brands to be able to improve, and that's how and why we put negatives in the video. This wing, it doesn't pretend to be something it's not. It's meant to be an all-round wing that has great ease of use, and it does exactly that. It's a fairly competitive price point. It's obviously from a well-known brand. You can get it available right around the world in all sorts of retailers. Maybe you can even demo one before you buy one. The leash works, the handles are good, the materials seem good, and the wing's nice and lightweight, and I can't really see any major negatives. The only one, if we're splitting hairs, is yes, the bag is big enough to get your pump in as well, but it'd be nice if there was a sort of webbing loop that you could put your pump on the outside of the bag, just in case you're like me and you can't quite pack up your wing small enough to get your pump in as well. That's literally the only negative we have found with this wing. And that sort of leads on to who should be buying this wing. Now, if you're wanting to go super fast or bust massive jumps or surf huge waves, maybe you should be looking at a more performance-based wing. But if you're looking for a wing, maybe even to get into the sport, or you're looking for a wing to move off from your beginner-based wing to a wing that gives you a bit more power, a little bit more stability, makes you jump higher, makes you go faster, makes you surf those waves a little bit easier, the usability of the wing is still there. They've got the windows, they've got the rubbing strips. They want to make this wing be able to be used as a beginner. So I think you could come onto this wing straight into the market with the V3. Now, don't get me wrong, there are loads of other wings on the market as well, but if you're a Starboard or Air Rush fan in the past and you like what FreeWing do and you want to get into the sport or you want to progress that much further, the Air V3 is a very comfortable wing that I think many of you out there need to have a look at, have a go on, or ask us any more questions about. And of course, if you've used this wing, if you've seen this wing, if you've heard other feedback from other people, get them in the comments section below. It's always good to hear your thoughts. I mean, we've been using this wing for a couple months in a lot of different conditions, but it needs to come from you. The best feedback we ever get is from you all out there after using it for 6, 10, 12 months maybe. Keep the feedback coming in. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you understand if the FreeWing V3 is right for you, and we'll see you on another SUPboarder or SUPboarder Pro video really soon.